Australia is one of the wealthiest nations on Earth, yet the vast majority of its landmass consists of an arid and unforgiving desert. For thousands of years, the bustling trade networks that connected Eurasia, the Middle East, and Europe bypassed this continent entirely. There was no Silk Road here. There was only vast, brutal geography. By the late 18th century, the British Empire viewed this isolation as a functional asset for a penal colony. They began shipping thousands of convicts to these shores, treating the continent as a remote, open-air prison. This raises a difficult question. How do you take a society founded by prisoners in a wasteland with no infrastructure, no industry, and no global neighbors, and turn it into a trillion-dollar modern economy? The answer lies in how they utilized that exact isolation. The harsh conditions forced a development strategy built entirely on exploiting the raw geography beneath their feet. For the early convicts and settlers, raw survival dictated the economy. Every road, farm, and building had to be constructed from absolute scratch. This was the opposite of the British experience in India, where an established, centuries-old textile industry was heavily taxed and dismantled to fuel factories in the UK. Australia had no pre-existing industries to strip. Instead, the settlers leveraged the only resource the land offered in abundance: endless, flat, empty space. That massive footprint provided enough room for sheep farming to flourish. Wool became Australia's first major export, creating a vital economic link back to British textile mills. This initial survival phase established a pattern for the nation's future. It proved that vast empty terrain could generate high profits if it functioned as the raw supplier to a distant industrialized empire. In the mid-19th century, the discovery of massive gold deposits shifted the entire economic focus from the surface to the soil. Hundreds of thousands of immigrants immediately flooded into the riverbeds and the outback. This sudden influx of people and concentrated wealth forced the scattered colonies to modernize at a rapid pace. The mining profits funded the construction of new railways, telegraph lines, and modern cities, creating the backbone of a connected nation. As the colonies became financially self-sufficient, Britain shifted its governance. Australia transitioned into a semi-independent member of the Commonwealth of Nations, allowing it to govern its own affairs while remaining within a global trade network. The gold rush provided the critical capital injection required to build a self-governing nation capable of operating in a modern, industrial global economy. Even with those early windfalls, Australia was still relatively poor following World War II, compared to its modern status. But as the global economy exploded in the post-war years, rebuilding nations and growing populations created a massive demand for raw materials. Australia leaned into a concept known as comparative advantage. Instead of competing with the established manufacturing hubs of Europe or North America, the nation focused on the one thing it possessed in abundance: raw, extractable earth. When Japan began rapid industrialization, Australia supplied the massive quantities of iron and coal needed to build cars and electronics. Decades later, they replicated this strategy to support the unprecedented growth of megacities in China. While Asian economies mobilized millions of workers in dense factories to manufacture global consumer goods, Australia stayed at the base of the supply chain. By prioritizing comparative advantage, Australia bypassed the high costs of manufacturing, instead securing a role as the primary supplier for Asia's rapid industrial expansion. Today, this focus on massive, specialized export volume has produced one of the highest standards of living on Earth. The ruins of the early penal colonies have been replaced by hyper-developed cities, proving how far the nation has moved from its origins as a remote prison. Australia's rise demonstrates how a nation can transform geographic isolation into an economic engine, proving that supplying the world's raw materials can build a standard of living that rivals the most advanced industrial powers.